Hey guys, it's Mad Dog. So today we're doing, Bratz. Kids Sleepover Adventure. So the movie starts with this weird movie. This weird music. And then they just start walking and then, title card, whatever. And then they say strange things happen on a full moon or something. And then they go to this girl's named Ginger's house or whatever. Supposedly. You'll see what I mean. And then they start having fun. And then they meet Ginger. And she never actually had a sleepover before. Relatable. And then they all start dancing, having fun. Hanging out. Doing what girls do best. And then it's time for bed for them. Then, the mom keeps on, checking on them throughout the film. And then they start telling scary stories. This one story is about, a doppelganger story. And then it just starts off with, us going to the carnival, which is kind of scary. And then it's about, some girl, looking in the mirror. And then, her friends are there, too. And then, turns out, that was a big mistake. And then she goes to, this other mirror about, doppelgangers. And then, here's the scary part. Pretty much, then, she starts messing around with the mirror. Then there's, a clone. Pretty much it pops out of nowhere, and then scares, living crap out of her. And then she starts chasing her. Pretty generic stuff. Not gonna lie. And then she starts running, and then she starts screaming, and then she gets replaced in the mirror. So, and then she says it's all true. And then there's Chloe's story, which is just about talking dog. Which I kind of like that concept. I mean, at least I think it's kind of scary, but I like that one. It's a good one. And then Chloe really wants a dog, and then her parents are you shouldn't you have to feed them, wash them, whatever. And then she has to babysit this dog named Paco, or whatever. But then turns out, and then she goes to this person's house or whatever. Then she gets Paco. And she has then he has a muzzle. But then she takes off the muzzle. And then, turns out he can talk. But she doesn't figure it out until later on. And then Taco starts talking to her, and then she finds out, and then but then she ends up taking care of Paco. Torturing him with like the things he hates, which is like a bath or something. And then she ends up getting a puppy after all that. And then she gets another surprise. It turns out it was another dog that talks. And then we're on to Clown Girl story. Like, what's the thing? So, pretty much, her story goes like this. Starts in the carnival, like the last one, like the first one. And then, turns out, things are just not going, like, her way, like, at all. Like, like, she can't go on her favorite ride. Because, her sister and her friends are kind of ruining everything. And then, they go see, like, oh yeah, then there's, like, a puking scene. Like, where they go on another ride, and then, but, kinda gross. Like, for a kid's movie. And then, turns out, then they have to, like, change her into, like, a clown outfit. And then, they go see, like, a magic show, but then, like, she disappears, and then she goes into, like, some alternate reality. Like, where nobody's there. It's kind of spooky, I know. It's kind of a weird one. And then things don't go right again. Like, literally, these, like, clowns and stuff start, like, showing up out of nowhere. And then she starts freaking out. And then she gets stuck on a ride, too, at some point. And then there's, let's see. And then she wishes, like, she can go back home, with her sister and stuff. And then, on to the next story. And then, like, Ginger, like, starts freaking out. Of course she does. Good. And then, on to the next story. It's just basically, like, charm bracelet, don't be greedy story, I guess. So, we're just gonna skip that one. Just because it's not worth mentioning. So then on to the next story. And then they keep on, like, hearing, like, weird noises from outside the house. Trust me, it'll be relevant, like, later on. And then we're on to Jasmine's story, I think. Like, where, where she doesn't believe in, like, scary rides or anything. And then she's just, like, kind of ruining the fun out of, like, Halloween in the ride. And then turns out, like, like, there was, like, this kid, like, who got stuck on the ride, started seeing things. And then they go on the ride, and then everything just turns to be fake. And then it's not. Like, her friends turn into, like, monsters. And then she gets, like, all freaked out. And then she's like, oh, that's so scary. Again. And then she starts freaking out, and then, like, she's being chased after these guys. But then, Dance, like, saves her, and, like, and then she gets on the ride, but then the monsters are after her still. Like, up to this point. And then she starts screaming, and then turns out it was all a dream. Or was it? And then she starts freaking out again, and then like her friends wake her up. And then pretty much that's about it. And then there's the plot twist, which is the craziest ending I've ever seen. Which is pretty much like all the stories like collide. Okay, so pretty much turns out that that house is actually abandoned this whole entire time. And nobody lived there in years. And then Ginger disappears. As well. So pretty much, and then they start freaking out, and then they have to like go to like each other's houses, and then they start running, and then they see like all the stories stuff, which is kind of freaky, you know. And then like they start like running, and then they start screaming, and then that like these ghosts are like following them or something. And then turns out, and then they turn into monsters. And then that freaks the ghost out. And then they don't like realize it. And then the end. It's the end of the story. Bye. End of the movie. But it was kind of crazy, huh? Well, I think I'd give that movie like maybe like a 9. It's pretty creative for its time. For using like horror aspects. So bye.